Welcome back to the Philadelphia Antique Show. The opening party on Friday night was an absolute smashing success. Many of the dealers have sold so many things that they've refurbished their booths, and so new material is here today for those people who are coming now that it's opening to the general public. It's a learning experience here as well as a buying experience. You can handle things that you can't handle in museums. You can ask dealers questions. It's a pretty marvelous thing that these University of Pennsylvania volunteers do for the hospital in Philadelphia. Even these flower arrangements, which look so professional, are done by the people here that are volunteering. It's a great organization to be part of, and I hope you enjoyed seeing our show.
Well, this is an early 19th century embroidered blanket. We think the finest American embroidered blanket to ever turn up. Quite elaborate, as you can see. It was made by Elizabeth Hewlett, who was from Byron, New York, in Genesee County, which is near Rochester, New York. What's particularly interesting about it is that it really, if you will, is a kind of symbolic quilt. It has pairs of adults, horses, birds, and human beings, all with their offspring. So it's sort of a paean to spring, to regeneration, to reproduction, and in beautiful color and virtually mint condition.
This is probably the classic China trade view. It's a view of the so-called factories or hongs at Canton. Canton, or Guangzhou as it's called nowadays, was the one place in China where Westerners were allowed to trade. So this is the whole fulcrum of the China trade. And the Westerners were allotted a strip of buildings along the Canton River, and they were called factories because that's where the factor was, the man in charge of trade. Doesn't mean anything was manufactured there. And you can see from the flags that the different trading nations would each have their own. The Dutch, the English or British, the Swedish, then the Spanish and the Danish. Americans didn't actually have a consulate until 1799, and this picture is a little earlier than that. So this is where everything happened. This is where you bought not only your paintings but your tea, the main thing that kept the whole China trade going, and your porcelain, your lacquer work, all your luxury goods which you then bring back to America or Europe and give to your family or sell at an enormous profit. This particular piece is $300,000, but it's an untypical piece. It's really the best there is of its kind. It's a very early one and beautifully detailed in its painting. They're not all quite as good as this.
We have a shop on Cape Cod in Yarmouthport, Massachusetts, and we've specialized in the material culture of the Shakers for 32 years. The Shakers themselves had two main money-making industries, and that was the production of chairs and the production of oval boxes. This is an example of a chair that was made for sale. It's the smallest size that they made, a size 0. And this is an entirely original condition, including the wool tape seat, and it exhibits the Shaker trademark, which the Shakers patented their designs and applied the trademark because they had competitors, even at the time, which is basically third quarter of the 19th century. This piece we've actually sold at the fair $3,500.
Between the period of, early America, 1700 to about 1850, young women went to school to learn to do embroidery and various kinds of needlework, along with taking classes in a lot of very accomplished subjects such as history, botany, philosophy, the languages, and so forth. And these were academies that girls attended from about 1790 to 1830. And they were so important, these academies, that they were more expensive to send a girl to one of these finishing schools than to send a young man to Harvard or Yale. This is a particularly lustrous piece. This was done at the Saunders and Beach Academy in Dorchester, Massachusetts. And it's depicting a scene of Sylvia's Stag, which is from the classics. And the girls would do the needlework, and after the needlework was completed, the faces and the background were painted by a professional artist. This particular piece is from the Hartford School, Hartford, Connecticut, Mrs. Patton's, and this was run by a mother and her 3 daughters. And this is a scene entitled Charity, which is taken from a print source. And characteristic of this school is the large eagle that's padded. It's a metallic thread eagle. It's very, very bright, and it reflects light a great deal. These were placed in the parlors, the best rooms in the home. And the object was, the reason that they used silk was because by candlelight they were very, very reflective.
My firm's name is Phillips Duval Incorporated. We're one of the oldest probably dealing in antiques anywhere in the Western world, 113 years. And we specialize now in China trade porcelain, which is sometimes referred to in this country as Chinese export porcelain. China trade puts it in the category of, puts it in the period of late 17th century to mid 19th century. This was made about 1770. You see a marvelous pair of bow pots, which have a very unusual turquoise ground coloring. These date about 1780. Here you've got a chocolate pot, which dates from the late 17th to early 18th century, right at the end, or in the famille verte category, which means primarily greens. And in the middle, you've got a very famous pattern. This is a pattern known as tobacco leaf, and there are several tobacco leaf patterns. This, with the large, bold, colorful leaves, is the primary pattern that people are looking for. But this is the one that's been reproduced by Mataheta, and you see it in a lot of hotel lobbies and a lot of restaurants. The Metropolitan Museum of Art sells a reproduction of that. But this dates about 1680, and that's the earliest piece we currently have in stock. The price range goes from a few $100s up into the high 5 figures, and even can go into early, into the low 6 figures.